A new package of U.S. sanctions against Russia is ready for approval, and a number of senators have already announced their support for it. Why are there increasingly frequent statements that Russia is not interested in peace? What will Donald Trump's position be? And when might this document be put to a vote? Let's break it down. The sanctions bill prepared by Senators Lindsey Graham and Richard Blumenthal could deal a devastating blow to the Russian economy, which is directly dependent on oil and gas exports. For any country that buys oil, uranium, natural gas, and petroleum products from the aggressor country, these documents provide for tariffs of 500%. Essentially, these are prohibitive tariffs that make importing sanctioned goods from Russia virtually impossible.
Not true what we say. Perhaps Putin thinks we are weak and indecisive and that we will never be able to pull ourselves together. He doesn't understand what it means in terms of practical impact. 82 senators coming together from both sides of the aisle, and that these sanctions will undermine his economy. They will be a heavy blow to a country that, as one of our colleagues put it, is essentially a gas station with nuclear weapons. He has only one resource, and we are going to cut off that resource as a means of generating revenue.
This bill began to be developed back in March. Various amendments and changes were introduced. This week it became known that it was also supported by the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mike Johnson, who, by the way, is a key ally of Trump. And yesterday, the US President's Special Representative for Ukraine, Keith Kellogg, stated that the document is ready and both Congress and the White House can proceed with its approval.
Last weekend I spoke with Senator Lindsey Graham. As far as I understand, the sanctions are ready. The bill is called the Russia Sanctions Act of 2025, and I think Graham has already prepared them and is ready to implement them. For Russia, this will be quite burdensome.
At the same time, the Trump administration has made it clear that the final decision on sanctions against the Russian Federation will be made by the President of the United States himself. During a briefing, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt stated that the American leader, and I quote, keeps sanctions as a tool in his arsenal in case they are needed. She also emphasized that Trump is open to meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and Putin as part of the third round of direct negotiations in Turkey.
I would like to remind everyone how much we have achieved in just 4 months. Last year, it was impossible to imagine that Russia and Ukraine would engage in direct negotiations. But the president is also prepared to impose sanctions if necessary. Both in the Senate and on Capitol Hill, it is understood that he is the commander-in-chief and directs the foreign policy of the United States as it should be.
The strengthening of sanctions against the aggressor country and defense support for Ukraine were discussed in Washington during the visit of the Ukrainian delegation. The head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, Andriy Yermak, met with the US President's special representatives, Steve Witkoff and Keith Kellogg. The Ukrainian side once again emphasized that Putin is trying to deceive everyone, stalling for time and manipulating in an attempt to avoid American sanctions.
I said that Russia is doing everything it can to keep the fire going. And it's worth putting an end to that through force, because Ukraine has done everything to make the war stop. But if Russia doesn't cease fire voluntarily, we have to conduct operations and destroy their military capabilities. Andriy Yermak, head of the Office of the President of Ukraine, in Telegram.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky stated this during a conversation with journalists. He noted that these will be two very strong packages. The 18th European package and the American one, which is being prepared by senators. According to him, this is the only way to stop Putin's war machine.
We really hope that our American partners, by taking a strong step, will send the sanctions package to the Senate, and that they will pressure the Russians into accepting a ceasefire regime precisely through strong sanctions. Otherwise, they don't understand, and we believe this is fair. It's already been 5 months since the United States made its statement regarding the ceasefire, and we supported them.
Brussels also states that the 18th package of European sanctions will be one of the toughest. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said that, first and foremost, it is about lowering the price cap on Russian crude oil. In addition, measures regarding the Nord Stream gas pipeline and the Russian banking sector are being discussed. But most importantly, Europe must act in tandem with the United States.
If these steps are taken in conjunction with US measures, it will dramatically increase the overall impact of our sanctions. The pressure on Russia is working because the Kremlin does not understand anything else. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission,
The ceasefire agreement, which has been in place since 2014 in the eastern region of Ukraine, was established to help reduce ongoing conflict.
We have seen all this more than once, and what we experienced at the recent talks in Istanbul was sobering. The Russian side put forward nothing but their usual unrealistic demands. A willingness for dialogue looks different. Ukraine, on the other hand, has repeatedly demonstrated its readiness for dialogue with concrete proposals for an immediate ceasefire, which could become the foundation for a just and lasting peace.
The only thing that can stop Putin is unbearable costs. For the war, as stated by the authors of the American sanctions bill, they are calling for it to be put to a vote in the coming days. And let us recall Donald Trump himself said on May 28th that he would need 2 weeks to determine whether the Kremlin dictator intends to stop the war. However, the Telegraph reports that the Senate is ready to impose tough sanctions against Russia even without Trump's approval. And already at the beginning of June, before Congress goes on recess, the vote may take place.